probably one of these people that are pretty self-taught. I didn't have a lot of technology background, and in fact, a friend of mine kind of kids me back. Oh, I'm thinking in the mid-'90s. He had a computer, or maybe in the early '90s, I guess, had a computer before I did, and he can remember. He always reminds me of this. He says, I remember when you came in there and you turned that computer off. You didn't even know what a soft boot was, and you were just so pathetic with this. And now look at you. So that was my sort of start. But I mean, from there, you know, mostly kind of just my own personal interest in it kind of grew. And from there, in our school division at the time was Moose Jaw Public. We're since amalgamated to Prairie South School Division. But at the time in Moose Jaw Public, as technology was becoming more part of the classroom, they were looking for lead teachers in classrooms to help support, you know, the technology infusion in schools. And so I was quite game to try that, and so started working just at a school level with teachers and just sort of taking whatever types of workshops and training I could, and basically became, you know, sort of self-taught a lot of those things. And in terms of kind of accelerating that process, we currently had a, and I guess even in that time, I kind of, you know, I think moved ahead more quickly than many other people in my same position, just because I was really excited about learning how to use a lot of the tools. Video in particular was one that really sparked my interest about, you know, how do we use these kinds of tools. And so I did a lot of stuff on my own, just, you know, playing around with video cameras with my family and stuff outside of an educational context, but it certainly paid off. And then very quickly after that, an opening came up in our school division at the time it was called resource-based learning consultant, but largely, even at that point, it was a huge focus on technology. And so I applied for that, and I got the job knowing that it would require me to further my education. And at that point, entered into the exact same program that you're in at the University of Saskatchewan, and worked along with my master's. And then during that time, I mean, the great part for me was the fact that while I was doing all of those things in my formal education, it was so complementary to what I was doing in my work life. And I in fact, you can look it up. I have a blog post that I wrote 2 years ago after I graduated called "The Easiest Masters Ever." And I felt like I had the easiest master's course or program ever, because everything was so integrated. Part of that was my situation, but also part of that was the faculty allowing flexibility in terms of the projects and things that I wanted to work on. So it was really self-directed, and that was a really big part of it. And then since that time, just continuing on with those things, and certainly in the last about 3 years, really getting involved with what's known as Web 2.0. I'm not sold on that term, but that's kind of where I am now in terms of trying to explore what's next in terms of what does this mean for learning. Well, as my official title is Digital Learning Consultant, and my role basically is trying to figure out, and there is no recipe out there for trying to help teachers and schools and students use technology in effective ways. And so we're constantly struggling with old models of professional development where we provide workshops and training and hope that things work, and we're really finding that model isn't all that effective for the types of changes that we want. And so my role is really to start almost not even using the word technology in a lot of the things that we're doing. So, for example, we're involved in a project, or in something right now called, project-based learning. And so, I mean, it's a familiar term, but what does it really look like when it's done in the classroom? And yes, definitely involves the use of technology, but at the same time is as much about changing the role of the teacher as a facilitator, and I even like the term network administrator, and what does that mean for a teacher, and those kinds of things. And so while the technology is definitely providing the push, it may not always be. I'm actually trying to use the term less, I guess, less overtly with teachers. So my role is basically supporting that kind of change in the classrooms. There's no way that I could ever pinpoint one person, but I can tell you a few people along the way that I've just sort of latched onto in terms of the work that they're doing. Richard Schwier would be certainly one person that would have begun me in that, or helped me begin the process, and helped me, I guess, really put on more of a theoretical or philosophical approach to it. I don't know if Rick really would like that mantle, but I guess from my perspective, I didn't have that. I was more, show me how to use a tool, show me how to use, really into that portion of it. And I think what he did is help me to force back and say, okay, what difference does it make in the learning process? So really understanding learning theories and its role in it really, I think, started me on a different perspective. From there, I definitely would look at online people such as Will Richardson, who I've had the opportunity to meet a number of times, and he's done some work for me. His thinking probably is pretty well aligned, and I've kind of aligned myself with him. Alan November would be another thinker or educational technologist that I really respect and kind of align my ideas with him. And then since then, I really would have a hard time. Now I have this conglomerate network of people that I constantly draw from, and in a sense, I almost refer to them as the collective network. And sometimes, what's interesting is when I'm writing or when I'm talking about something, I'm making reference to a website or a blog post or a book, and I'm frustrated because I can't always remember where I got it from, and I know it's not my idea, but there's just so many people out there that are constantly feeding me this great stuff that I can't even identify it anymore. What I would say to that is, there is a personal aspect to the relationship. I mean, outside of, say, Alan November, who I actually have met, but I don't really know him. Rick and Will would be two people that I actually have a personal connection with, and so you move to a point where these people aren't just resources or whatever, but they're actually people that you can actually engage in conversations with and get feedback from and interact with in a way that you couldn't. I mean, previously, if you had people that influenced you, whether they were athletes, writers, whatever, they were just iconic figures that you just watched and observed. You didn't really have a chance to actually engage and interact with these people. And now, so many people that you're influenced by, you can actually connect with. And so I think that's a real interesting phenomenon. Yeah, I think one definitely is the whole idea of personal learning networks and what does personal learning look like. And I think what we're seeing is, with the advent of access and technology that we have, it's certainly shifting. And that's when I talked about project-based learning. That's sort of the premise of that no longer are teachers gatekeepers of knowledge. We know that. So what is their role now? And the fact that if I'm a high school student or a university student and I want to take, MIT's been doing it for a while, but I think Yale just recently released all of their undergraduate courses online for free. You can learn them, you can take it. I mean, you won't get the credit unless you pay them the dollars, but if you're just interested in learning, that's there. And as I said before, you can connect with people. So if that's the case, and this is my, for me anyways, the burning issue. If even today, a high school student, for example, could take their entire high school courses online, what is it that would make them want to come to a school? Knowing that they could take them from experts too. I mean, the chances of having high-quality experts in a building, pretty limited. So the teacher now knows they're not the expert. Anytime you open up the laptop, you're no longer the smartest person in that room. So what is it that schools are going to do to create learning that actually will say to kids, I want to be there? Now, I find that most teachers say, well, the social. Yeah, that's social, but kids are coming to school not because the social is happening in the classroom. It's because, they're doing extracurricular or going out for coffee at lunch or whatever. So my big burning issue right now is how do we make social learning not just one little activity we do, but that's actually the basis of all learning, is that it's social. So that's a burning issue for me, because I think in the future, and even right now, we have to start thinking seriously about that. And then the second thing, I guess, in terms of a more current issue is the move to a one-to-one type learning environment, and what does that look like? And you look at projects like Maine, the state of Maine, where not every kid right now, but basically every kid from 7 till 12, I think, have a laptop. What is that? How does that change learning? How do we provide that? And we're in, there's an interesting situation even now. Like, for example, and I'm sure you'll see this in pretty well every place you go. We have a high school who had 30 kids coming to them in September saying, we have a laptop, I want to bring it to school, hook me up to the network. So it's not even a matter of having to buy the laptops anymore. I think that's going to be actually less of an issue. Kids are just, $400, it's like a pair of shoes now, right? It's not a big deal. So what do we do when the kid says, I want to bring this into my classroom? And we've got teachers, we've got university professors who don't want kids to open up a laptop in their room because they don't know what to do. They don't know how to create a learning environment where that's okay. So those would be two issues, I think, that we have to think about. I really think it comes down to, and I don't know how to make it happen for teachers, but it comes down to teachers in the classroom finding, however they do that, time to be learners and time to develop this on their own. And I understand that in today's world, teaching is a heavy job, and anytime something new comes along, we're already full, right? So how do you add more to that? So that's the real problem that I have is getting teachers to feel like, because what has to happen is something else has to go, because you already got enough to do. It's not like you're sitting around, gee, I wish I had something to do for the next hour. Like, no one does that. So how do you help people understand that this is the norm? Now, I'm in a great situation because that's just part of what I do. So the idea I talked about before of this personal learning and my network and all of the interactions that I have, in one day I can have a conversation with someone from Saskatoon, like yourself, video. I'll have someone from Nevada that'll have me come in. I bring some, like, it just, it's limitless, right? But that's part of how I operate. So part of what I think we need to do is do a better job of showcasing those teachers who are doing it. They've figured it out because I'm not the best person to do that, because I'm not in a classroom right now to say, I can tell you, here's some cool things to do. Well, you tell me how I'm going to do that, right? So I think I'm trying to focus more on, let me just show you this person here, and show you what they've done and the transformations that they've made in their classrooms as a model for that. And I think it's also important that we find that locally as well. Because there's something different, right? I can point to you and say, this teacher in somewhere in the U.S. or in Australia is doing great things. Immediately the butts come around, because it's like, but they don't have the same context that I do. So finding people in your school divisions, in your province, that are doing these things in the same working environment that you're in, and hopefully in the same grade level and all that stuff, and saying, look, if you're a high school teacher, have a look at this person and the really amazing things that they're doing in their classrooms, and building a model for that. So I think that's something that I think is important, and I'm trying to figure out how to tell those stories better and how to showcase that kind of work better.